When a morbidly obese man discovers he doesn't have long to live, he will try to reconnect with his teenage daughter to get a sense of redemption after abandoning her when she was just a kid. Will he succeed? And that's why today in Flick Summary, The Whale. The film opens with Charlie, an English professor who teaches an online college writing course while keeping his camera off to hide his appearance. It's Monday. He is done with work and relaxing on the couch while watching a gay adult film, which he doesn't get to enjoy as he suffers a minor stroke due to his condition that almost kills him. Right then and there, a guy named Thomas enters the apartment and helps Charlie by reading him an essay about Moby Dick that somehow calms him down. Thomas, who was a missionary and was there to spread God's word, arrived just in time to keep Charlie company while he waited for his friend Liz, a nurse. Liz, who is clearly worried about Charlie's condition, begs him to go to the hospital and get treated, but he refuses to do so as he states that doing that will only get him into debt. Charlie goes to the bathroom and Thomas gets ready to leave, but before doing so, he and Liz have a conversation where she explains that she is grateful for helping Charlie, but they don't need him to visit or try to talk Charlie into joining New Life, the church Thomas is a member of, as he will probably die before the week ends. Here we learn Charlie's boyfriend Alan was a member of New Life as well. However, being part of that church was actually the very same thing that got him killed. But we'll get to that later in the video. Charlie walks back to the living room and talks to Liz once again, who this time tells him he really needs to go to the hospital, or else he won't live past that week. Thomas leaves Charlie's place, but not before asking him why he handed him the Moby Dick essay when he was in need of help. Charlie states he thought he was going to die and wanted to read that essay before passing to a better life. After spending some time with Liz eating fried chicken and watching TV, Charlie gets ready to go to bed, and while doing so, starts to recite the Moby Dick essay once again. Tuesday. The next morning, Charlie is having a battle with himself trying to choose between a healthy grain bar or a bunch of candies. He goes for a chocolate bar, but has second thoughts and puts it back in the drawer. He then goes online to Google about his condition, but gets sad and frustrated after learning what Liz had told him was true. He had but a few days to live if he didn't go to the hospital. Enraged, he opened the candies drawer and started eating to cope with his problems. Having realized he doesn't have long to live, he calls Ellie, his daughter, whom he hadn't seen in a very long time. He asks her to come to see him and goes to take a shower and shave to look presentable for when she arrives. Ellie finally gets there and looks disgusted at the sight of her father, asking him if she is also going to get fat. They get to talk and Ellie tells him she's not doing very well in school and that she might not even graduate. Charlie tries to parent her, but she stops him and tells him he doesn't have any right to do so as he abandoned her when she was 8 years old to be with one of his students. Charlie tries to stay positive and tells her he thinks it would be a good idea for them to know each other. However, this only upsets Ellie even more and prepares to leave the apartment, but stays after Charlie offers to pay her to spend time with him, as well as help her with her studies. Ellie closes the door and gets back inside where they talk a little more and discuss the details of their arrangement. Charlie will give her all the money he has in the bank, which is almost $120,000, and she will have to write a new essay with the help of her father. The deal doesn't seem to be precisely what Ellie considers ideal, as she only wants her father to do the job for her. So she rushes to leave the apartment again, but stops once she's at the foot of the door and dares Charlie to stand up from his couch and walk towards her without his walker. He tries his best, but fails to do so and ends up falling and breaking the piece of furniture next to the couch. This upsets Ellie and she finally leaves. Charlie orders pizza for lunch and the guy who delivers tries to have a conversation with him, but fails. He waits for the delivery guy to drive away before opening the door to pick up his order, and just stays in his apartment until Liz visits him at night, bringing him some groceries and helping him in whatever way she can. However, she is quick to realize Charlie's daughter had been in the apartment once she finds her failed essay at the counter in the kitchen. Liz scolds Charlie for having met with her when he's not supposed to and tells him he shouldn't have to do her homework to spend time with her. Charlie, however, is not willing to lose hope and only sees the good in his daughter, despite all the signs pointing at the fact that she is just not okay. They sort of leave the conversation on hold while Liz goes to do the dishes and Charlie enjoys a sandwich on the couch. But things take a bad turn for Charlie, who starts choking on his food and almost dies. Liz saves him, but she cries, fearing that one day she won't be there when Charlie needs her. Wednesday. Charlie starts the day with yet another online lesson and then walks up to a shelf where he grabs a portrait of him and his deceased beloved Alan. This seems to bring him some fond memories as a subtle smile creeps across his face. Now we see Charlie walking down the hall in his place and trying to reach a key placed on the top of a dorm's door. But he misses it and it falls to the ground where he attempts to pick it up with his grabber reacher. Once again, He's got no luck, and this time, the key gets stuck beneath a piece of furniture that he can't get to, even with the help of his grabber. We then see Ellie, who goes to Charlie's house to try to get him to rewrite her essay while she just sits on the couch and wastes time on her phone. Charlie, however, wants her to be involved in the process and points out some things in her essay where she could improve. Ellie wants nothing to do with it and confesses she simply used Wikipedia to list a bunch of facts rather than doing the work herself as she was instructed to. However, she does also state she had indeed read the poem she had to write the essay about, but decided not to put an effort into writing her thoughts because she knew her teacher wouldn't approve of her vision. They finally get to talk about something other than school, and Charlie learns Ellie and her mom moved out from their place when she was 11 years old. 3 years after Charlie had walked out on her. Not only that, but his infidelity had led Mary, Charlie's ex-wife, to become an alcoholic. Seeing as Charlie is questioning Ellie about her life, she decides to do the same and asks him about Alan. Charlie confesses he gained weight after Alan passed away and he couldn't cope with the fact that he was gone. However, this doesn't seem to be enough for Ellie, who goes on to ask him how Alan died. Charlie can't handle the question and refuses to answer it by changing the subject and telling Ellie he will write the essay for her, but in turn, she needs to write something for him. Anything, just something honest. He then goes to the bathroom and bursts into tears. While he is there, Thomas knocks on the door and is greeted by Ellie, who doesn't waste any time and questions him about who he is, learning in a matter of seconds that he's part of New Life. They chat for a while, and she then randomly takes a photo of him as well as one of her father coming out of the bathroom, to then leave the property, but not before inviting Thomas to return the following day and meet her there at the same time. Thomas is left alone with Charlie, and he is given the opportunity to express his thoughts on the world, pretty much revealing that the church believes the earth will soon be cleansed so they can start over. Charlie has heard enough and tells Thomas he has read every single pamphlet New Life has ever shared and knows the way they think. Thomas asks Charlie for a chance to help him, but he will only accept one thing from him: his help retrieving the key he lost the day before. It turns out this key actually opened Alan's room, but before he could get a chance to enter the dorm, Liz walked in and interrupted Thomas just as he was trying to learn what had happened to Alan when he was in New Life. Liz is surprised to see Thomas in the house, as she made it clear they didn't need his help, and asks him to wait for her to have a chat while helping Charlie sit in a wheelchair she had gotten for him. They then go outside the property to have a conversation, and Liz explains in detail what happened to someone she once knew and who got into the church. It turns out Liz had a brother who had done some missionary work for New Life and traveled to South America, where he spread the church's word. Some months went by and he wrote Liz a letter telling her he was tired and lonely but didn't want to return home because he didn't want to marry a girl from the church his father had made an arrangement with. Eventually, Liz's brother returned but fell in love with someone else and was kicked out of the house as well as from the church because of that. He couldn't stand it, got depressed, and ended his life by jumping off a bridge. His name? Alan, the love of Charlie's life. Thomas felt sorry about the tragedy, but he remained strong in his decision of helping Charlie no matter what. Liz started screaming at him and Charlie opened the door to interrupt, which Thomas took as an opportunity to run away. The night sets in and Charlie tries to enter Alan's room, but can't fit through the door. So he takes a deep breath to try to pick up on any scent of Alan there might still be in the room. He then orders some pizza, and this time we learn the name of the delivery guy, Dan. Dan talks to Charlie through the door and tells him he just wanted to introduce himself, being that he had become a regular customer. He then goes on his way and Charlie is left alone eating his pizza and reading what Ellie had written earlier that day. Let's just say she isn't the friendliest person in the world. Thursday. The next day, Ellie goes to Charlie's house to pick up her essay, but he somehow convinces her to stay a little longer and continue writing what she had started the day before. It doesn't take long before Charlie tries to parent Ellie by telling her not to be angry at the world, as he is the one she is supposed to be mad at. Ellie, of course, can't handle the situation and finally explodes, reproaching her father for having walked out on her when she was a kid. She then goes to the kitchen to make herself a sandwich and another one for her dad. But this was only a play to put some crushed sleeping pills into Charlie's food. He falls asleep, and Ellie starts exploring the house, entering his father's dorm first, and then Alan's. Soon enough, Thomas arrives and is greeted by Ellie, who this time rushes him inside the house and into the small living room area where they sit and have a chat. Ellie lights up a pipe and learns Thomas was actually an avid consumer of the substance before joining the church. He feels uncomfortable, so he tries to leave, but Ellie threatens him with giving Charlie more sleeping pills if he does. Thomas stays, and it doesn't take long before Ellie once again convinces him to do what she wants, which in this case was to smoke from her pipe, or else she would call the police and tell them he tried to abuse her. Thomas has no other option but to obey and starts smoking in front of her. Ellie then takes another photo of him and saves it on her phone. She then confronts him about not being a member of New Life, stating that she knows for a fact they stopped paying home visits after an incident the year prior. Thomas freaks out and tries to leave the house, but can't do so he runs to hide inside Alan's room, and eventually opens up to Ellie and tells her what had really happened. It turns out Thomas wanted to do more for the church and didn't think their methods were actually helping people, so he ditched the pamphlets and started preaching on his own. Seeing as this was working, he decided to share the information with the church, but the leader would not accept anyone doing things differently than he had already established, and they got into a huge fight in front of the rest of the members. That day, Thomas left the church and ran away from home, but not before stealing $2,536 from them. Ellie records him while he explains he wants to go back home but is afraid his family won't take him back and that he might even go to jail. When he is done telling his story, he opens the door and walks out of Alan's room just in time to see Ellie's mom and Liz entering the house. They find Charlie sleeping and scold Ellie for giving him sleeping pills, as that could have killed him. He eventually wakes up and things get a little heated when Mary makes it clear that he is giving Ellie money, so she spends time with him. Liz is hearing this for the first time and gets very disappointed after discovering he had over $100,000 in savings that could have helped him pay for treatment, but decided to give it all away to his ungrateful daughter. Mary asks Ellie to leave, and as she is doing so, Charlie tells her he knows she didn't mean to hurt him. But then, this happens.
Fucking die already!
Ellie picks up her essay and storms out of the house. Charlie is now alone with Mary, and they take the time to talk out their problems and try to understand each other. Mary confesses she had fought to have Ellie's full custody at first because of what Charlie had done to her when he left with a man. But over time, she realized her daughter was evil, and she didn't want Charlie to see her because he would have thought she was a bad mother. She then proceeds to show him Ellie's Facebook page where she uploaded the picture of him she had taken the day prior to make fun of him. Charlie once again stays positive and tries to see the good in the situation, explaining that Ellie is just expressing herself. Mary starts crying once she realizes there's very little time left for Charlie to live, and she lays her head on his chest while he remembers one of the happiest memories he had of her and his kid when they were younger. Mary finally leaves, and sometime later Charlie orders pizza as per usual, but this time Dan, who felt eager to meet who his regular customer was, stayed near the door waiting for Charlie to come out and pick up his pizzas. When he finally did, Dan felt disgusted and left the place in a hurry. Charlie felt bad and went back inside to write an email to his students to tell them to forget about the effing essays and just write something honest. He then proceeds to eat everything he can find to cope with his sadness, but he ends up puking some of his food. That very same night, Thomas returns and comes clean about not being a member of New Life anymore. He explains Ellie had taken a picture of him smoking pot and recorded him while he was confessing to what he had done and sent the material to the church, which he tracked down in a matter of hours. Thomas claimed he didn't know if Ellie had done this to hurt him or help him, but the church had sent the photo and recording to his parents, and it all had led them to beg his son to come back, as they didn't care about any of what he had done. They only missed him and wanted him back. This brings joy to Charlie, who genuinely thinks Ellie did something good to help somebody. Thomas offers his help one more time before he goes back home, but makes the mistake of suggesting Alan had died because he chose to leave God to be with Charlie. Charlie doesn't take it and makes Thomas very uncomfortable to the point at which he finally explodes and confesses he finds Charlie to be disgusting. He then apologizes and leaves Charlie's place for good. Friday. The next morning, Charlie discovers he had been replaced by another professor after some students complained about the email he had sent. He talks to them and is happy to see that at least some of them did follow his instructions and wrote something real and honest. This in turn gave him the confidence to be honest with his students and finally show them what he looks like before throwing away his laptop and breaking it on the floor. Liz pays him a final visit, as it's clear Charlie doesn't have much more time to live, and they talk about Alan and how he saved him from ending his life earlier than he did. Ellie bursts mad into the house and demands to talk to her father alone, but realizes he's dying and asks Liz to call an ambulance. Liz steps outside to call for help, and Ellie confronts her father, telling him she had failed her test because of the essay he had written. Charlie says he didn't write it and asks his daughter to read it. It was but the Moby Dick essay Thomas had read to him when he first met him, an essay Ellie herself had written when she was younger and which her mother had given to Charlie 4 years in the past when he asked how she was doing in school. Charlie gets sentimental and starts complimenting Ellie on how perfect she is. But as he's crying and expressing his thoughts to his daughter, his heart starts to fail, and Ellie tries to leave to not see her father die. Charlie asks her to stay and read him the essay to help him at least once. Ellie starts crying, and though hesitant about it, she starts reciting her essay to her father. Charlie decides to make one last effort and put all of his strength into getting up from the couch and walking towards his daughter while she was reading for him. His time finally comes, and just a few inches away from Ellie, Charlie's favorite memory of him and his daughter comes to his mind, and he finally dies. The end. I have to admit, this was a hard movie to watch, but beautiful in so many ways. I can totally understand Brendan Fraser getting an Oscar for his performance in this film, and can only hope he continues to make flicks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, and see you next time.